Good evening, everyone. We are so glad that you have chosen to join us here on Centered.Live. And we have an interesting topic for you tonight. AI is not God. Let's just start there. It's powerful, it's useful, but it's not divine. Still, sometimes we act like our phones or our devices hold all of the answers. Today on Centered.Live, we're cutting through the hype and the fear. We'll talk about how technology and faith intersect and how AI is not a revolution, but an evolution. And we've actually addressed some of this before, and we hope that you'll enjoy this particular view or this particular take on the usefulness and the lack thereof for AI. So let's make sure that we keep these tools as servants and not our masters.
Yeah, I like that, Paul. And AI is really just the next step in technology. I mean,
Right.
what was the first one? Fire or the wheel, right? And then we
Yep.
had farming, and the printing press was
Right.
huge, right? Electricity, computers, the internet, and just it's an evolution, like we've talked about, an evolution of technology, not a revolution like some people are claiming AI is so wonderful, taking over, it's going to steal our jobs. But but none of them replace faith or the need for some wise discernment. Is that redundant? Wise discernment?
Right.
So here's a key point. AI is built on human-centered knowledge. It's not revelation, although it can have the revelation of man that he's received. It doesn't give you truth with a capital T that starts with P and rhymes with pool. Music man
That
right here.
sounds like trouble.
So, and here's the thing that I wanted to emphasize today is that AI gives you a filtered contextual information. In fact, it's often safer than a search engine.
Right.
Because it's designed to connect dots instead of just dumping results on you.
Right. And I'm not a technology Luddite, but as far as my world of technology, I use it as a tool. And actually, thanks to you, I have been learning how to use AI more reliably and more helpfully in my job. And for certain, we as teachers are now being encouraged to allow AI to help us develop lesson plans. And a lot of that is because of the enormous knowledge base that AI engines have access to.
Right.
And so they can bring information in that maybe we would not have thought of. And it's so interesting because, again, for the AI engine to work and to work better than a standard search engine, we have to put in the parameters. We have to say to AI, this is what I want you to be able to create. And a great example of that is that a couple nights ago, I said, okay, I actually am teaching a class on current issues, and my upcoming unit is on immigration. And all the information that I have is way beyond the level of the students that I'm currently teaching. And so I thought, well, I'm going to ask Gemini to create a lesson plan for me at a specific grade level. And I defined the parameters of what information I was looking for and to organize that information into a 3-day presentation with interactive lessons. And it did a beautiful job.
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's where AI is really strong is if you give it a whole contextual background of what you want.
You set the parameters, right?
Yep. You set the parameters and say, okay, here's this, but it's, this is college level. I want 10th grade or 12th grade level, whatever. It does a wonderful job at that.
No, I will tell you something funny because it came back with a little commentary and it says, "Oh, immigration is perfect for this age group." And I thought,
Oh,
okay, that was interesting. So exciting. It said, "Oh, this is exciting." I'm going, well, it is. But let's talk a little bit about how, let's talk about stewardship.
mm,
We really think of stewardship as caring for the earth, right? Uh,
mhm.
but it's bigger than that. In fact, stewardship includes caring for everything that is placed in our hands as tools. So, and that certainly includes technology,
Yeah. Well, think back to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And what was their commandment? To dress and keep the garden.
right?
And everything that we have been given since that point is part of that stewardship.
Right,
They were given the stewardship over the garden. They then eventually children, and then uh, just so much was added on to benefit and help man grow and learn.
right.
And this is a huge step forward for us. It started with computers, the internet, the databases, the knowledge bases that have been compiled over the years.
Well,
Now,
even think about going back before that. I mean, as we as humans learned how to communicate in writing, and then that became newspapers and books, and then the books became libraries, and all of that knowledge is there, and it actually doesn't do anybody any good as long as it's still on the shelf. It's potential knowledge, but it isn't helping us until we decide that we need to find something, and we go in and we do the research, we pull the books off the shelves, we open the books, we then find the information that we're looking for. And so I think that this is now, in a sense, it is our digital garden that we've been asked
mhm,
to tend.
yeah, there's so much that has come along since then, since the printing press, the printed word,
Right?
language has developed and matured.
And continues to change always.
Exactly
You
right.
should hear some of my students. You would wonder, what are they saying?
Skibbity, have you heard that word? Skibbity?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I don't know what that means.
It's already fading away.
Oh, that one's gone. Gosh, I'm
Yeah.
last decade already. So, I did some interesting things with AI in the last week or two, and that is I took a family history, a summary of my great grandfather's journey from England to
Okay.
Utah, put it in, and it compiled a wonderful description of everything he did, and quotes from um, the captain of the ship and
Ah,
some other things, and not only that, but AI, on especially on the familysearch.org, it will read handwriting and allow you to
wow.
just say, "Oh, is that correct?" Boom. Yep. Okay. Sure.
Okay.
So it makes it much easier. You know how hard
So
it is.
you're scanning this in then, through an original document.
Right. Right. You
Wow.
can take a picture of it, scan it in. As soon as the computer sees it, it will match it with an AI knowledge base. Doesn't
Oh
matter
my
the
goodness.
language, the handwriting. Now, it's not perfect because
Right,
handwriting isn't perfect. The,
right.
the writer wasn't perfect to begin with, but it does a lot better. I mean, here you could you do. I know you knew Japanese really well, but you could do Chinese now, right?
Oh, it
But
would be interesting for sure.
but
You know
all
the
right,
term chicken scratch? That's what
yeah,
it's like, okay, AI, give it a shot.
yeah, the doctor signatures, no, it won't do that.
Right, right.
But the very same algorithms and the same fuel or the same technology can be used as a distraction
Yeah,
and a
right,
diversion and
right.
misinformation. But here's the thing, You don't have to be afraid of AI because it's going to mirror you.
Yes.
And if you feel evil at that time, it's going to mirror that evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Right.
that's part of our stewardship that we have, because that is a power that is following us along our journey with technology.
Exactly so, exactly so, and I love the way that you put that into context, because ultimately, as I'm thinking about this, it seems like the real question is, what am I cultivating with the tools that I am using, right? Am
Hmm.
I planting weeds with endless scrolling or binge watching, or am I nourishing something meaningful with purposeful use? And this becomes something that not only can guide us as adults, but needs to be something that is taught with purpose for youth, especially. Again, in my classroom, so I don't know, you may be aware that Utah actually passed a law that banned all cell phone use in the classroom. Now, of course, a teacher can still say, all right, I want you to do some research, pull out your phones or your smart books or your tablets, et cetera, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of schools are now actually providing Chromebooks to the students to use on purpose.
Right.
This makes sense. But in terms of just the constant texting, the constant music, which music in itself is not the issue. It's the fact that if they've got an earbud and they're listening to music, they're also not really fully listening to what the discussion should be happening in the classroom, right? And
Right.
so Utah, in their last congressional session, actually by law said, okay, in the classroom, unless the teacher says otherwise, cell phones and other electronic devices are not allowed. Now,
Mm.
having said that, what I'm finding is that some students are, I would say, addicted. And I use that word somewhat lightly, but at the same time, it's reasonably accurate in that they can't seem to disconnect. It's almost like if their earbuds are out, then they are wondering, why is it so quiet? Well,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be in a classroom. There should be active discussion going on. But the point being is that they start to go through some type of or some level of withdrawal symptoms. And it's like if they can't answer a text immediately as soon as they receive it from a friend who's probably also in a classroom,
Hmm.
then they start to get really nervous about it. But the intent here was to create not a digital desert, but to again use the tools with the correct purpose. And in
Yes.
some cases, the time for using a digital tool is not when you're supposed to be in a discussion with your fellow students and the teacher. So, anyway, it's interesting again, this idea that okay, we have that responsibility. Are we taking that responsibility seriously, or are we just kind of blowing it off and say, it's a bunch of old guys that don't understand what life is like for the young people now?
Yeah, and that all falls into this stewardship lens. So
Right.
that we're looking at it the right way, not fearing and not the hype, just responsibility to what we've been entrusted with.
Right,
So
right.
we can take that and use it as a tool for betterment, not taking us down.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us back to a word that you used earlier, and that is the need for discernment. So
Hmm.
there's a principle from scripture that works just as well for technology as it does for people. By their fruits ye shall know them.
Oh yeah, I like that one. Yeah, and actually, I use that filter in my life. It's so often now; it's almost automatic. When I
Excellent.
want
That's how it should be.
right, well, it's when I'm interacting with somebody, I can tell what kind of person they are by what kind of results that they produce,
Mhm.
and or what kind of disabilities they might have, learning systems that they may have implemented on themselves. But here's three things that I've done.
Okay.
I look at a piece of technology, whether it's software, a phone, an app, whatever. Does it increase my capacity to love and serve?
Wow.
Okay. Does it
Wow.
increase your capacity to love and serve? Now, so
And see, we would not ever think of technology in that context. So
right.
expand on that a little bit,
Okay,
maybe.
so that one's the first one. That one we'll label love. Okay, that's the
Okay.
key word is love, number one. Second, does it align with my commitments and values?
Okay.
Okay, we have responsibilities with our spouse, our family, our parents, our siblings, um, our church, our uh, our deity that we pray to. All those we've made commitments to and have established a set of values. So we're going to call that second one values. So first one
Okay.
love, second one
Okay.
values. Okay. Third one, does it lead me toward truth or away from it?
And this is capital T, truth.
Truth with a capital T. It stands for yeah, for truth.
Yes.
So love, values, truth. Those are the key words to think about when you implement something new in your life. And my wife and I were talking about this earlier today. Well, 37 years ago, 38 years ago, we all went to the Franklin Covey, or well, then it was Franklin Institute
Mm-hmm.
classes, and we got this binder that
Yep.
you
Yep.
learned the system. Yep.
Yep.
And
The organizers.
right, the organizers, and people could use that for good
Yes.
or evil, right? Same as
Or
the
ignore them
technology.
altogether.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that, Randy. It was almost, and maybe it shouldn't have been surprising, but I really, really love that idea of love, values, and truth. Um, and again, applying those parameters to the use of technology is not something that I would have thought of, and so I'm so glad that you brought it up. And of course, this I think is where um, your expertise helps us to understand the truth of the need for the technology as a tool, right? So let's be clear. Let's be clear. AI is not a prophet. It's not revelation.
Right.
It's simply trained, if you will, to be able to pull from the oceans of human content.
Hmm.
And that means the good, the bad, the contradictory. And that's why it's so important for discernment. And that's why discernment matters within the choices that ultimately we are making. And sometimes we're making that choice almost as if a knee-jerk reaction, or we're getting to the point to where we are feeling addicted, which means that if we put it away, that we are having some level of withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah.
So here's where I think AI actually helps. It's often safer, as you mentioned before, it's often safer than a raw search engine, right?
Hmm.
Because it filters and it can contextualize, it can even editorialize,
Yeah. That's
which
right.
is always kind of fun. Okay. A
Entertaining.
search engine just throws the pages of content at you. And boy, as good as Google is, and I still use Google, I
Yeah.
have noticed that Google is now allowing its search engine to help filter the results and give you a real language um, response. And I'm doing this sometimes even in the classroom. Like today, for example, I could not remember for the life of me the age that John F. Kennedy was when he was elected to be president of the United States. I knew that he was the youngest of all of our presidents, but I couldn't
Hmm.
remember. And so I just quickly typed in age of JFK as president. And instead of just simply saying 43, it actually gave me a sentence that provided the answer that I was looking for. So that was kind of interesting. But AI is designed to weigh meaning and connect ideas. And that doesn't mean it's perfect.
Yeah.
In fact, if you do it often enough and long enough, you're going to start to see, oh, there's a little bit of a miss here, right?
Yeah.
But that's based on our understanding and our knowledge, right? So it does make it more useful, and it does make it a good guide rather than a floodgate. So again, some parameters to be thinking about.
Yeah, and I think that's where a spiritual life balance begins, where you're balancing your technology, you're balancing your time with your family. Now, I remember once being in a meeting, and there was a church leader giving a talk, a presentation. Somebody asked the question, how do I find balance in my life? Okay, this is a whole nother topic. Maybe, we this is
Right.
kind of a combination of about 6 different episodes that we've had, but it comes down to balance isn't about spending equal time with your responsibilities. It's being able to give a particular responsibility the time it needs at the appropriate moment.
Right.
So
In other words, it's not a ladder of hierarchy where something is always at the top. It is more of almost like a cube or something that rotates, and depending on what is the thing that is most needed at the moment, that's what you're saying. This is what I'm focusing on.
Yeah, exactly. So the things that are most important part of that are continued quiet time, prayer, scripture, reflection. Those things can't be outsourced or assigned to somebody else. Those are something that you have to do. Now, tech can help clear your clutter, but the spirit is the only thing that gives wisdom. And that's why keeping technology in its place is so important.
Right. Right. I absolutely love that idea that it's the spirit that provides wisdom, which also then plays into discernment, right? I
Right.
mean, that's when we know if what we're getting through or our interaction with technology is okay, or if it's out of balance. And it's because the spirit would then be able to say, hey, you know what, maybe you should unplug here, or maybe you should reduce what you are doing. And that's anything. That's not just focused on AI. That's any element. I mean, we could spend too much time with something and it becomes out of balance.
Mhm.
And when you talk about hobbies and passions, it's easy sometimes for those things to get out of balance. Let's get practical here for just a moment. How do we keep technology specifically as a servant and not our master?
Well, it takes a little effort and planning. It's
Mhm.
sometimes we allow these things to come into our minds, our lives, and just automatically adapt to whatever
Right?
throw at us, right?
Yep.
So it's important for me, this is what I do. Every morning, I start my day with some scriptures. My wife and I pray together,
Mhm. Yep.
and the only thing that we do with screens up to that point is we might be looking up scriptures or a reference, a talk, a good quote, or something beneficial. We're not on Facebook. We're not on text messaging and things like that. But and number 2 is every piece of tech entertainment. Make
Okay.
sure you choose one that builds relationships.
That goes back to your love and values and truth.
Right. So for me and my family, we use WhatsApp to
Okay.
build our relationships. It's a daily thing where all of my children almost every day participate somehow. Now, for me, it's awesome because I don't always see my grandkids every week,
Right.
and they share pictures and little video
Oh,
clips of
fun.
things. My one daughter took her kids to the zoo, and another one took them to their kids to the dinosaur park, and it's involving in their lives a little
Yeah.
bit more. So for me, that's one technology I really want to keep.
Right.
But we used to do that on Facebook and with a little private group. My
Hmm.
kid said, I don't want to be on Facebook anymore. And so we moved to WhatsApp so that it's contained and private and relatively
That's spectacular. I in the past I've tried using Marco Polo a little bit,
yeah.
and my my immediately my children, not so much my grandchildren yet, but my children and their spouses. We have a text group that we are often posting
Yeah.
to, and then me and all my siblings, and then there's another group from my siblings and their spouses, and so that's
Yeah.
you're right. Those can be a great joy. And if you need to communicate something important fairly quickly, it all works. It's a great tool.
Yeah. But even those are important to mute that particular group
Hmm.
when you're overwhelmed. You need to
Hmm.
break. And you know what? I tell people, if it's a real emergency, call me on the phone.
Right. Right.
I may not look at the text message. I do reply quickly in most cases, but an emergency, please just call me. But all right, well, let's I wanted to finish up with a third item. So start your day with scripture and prayer.
Right.
You find a piece of tech that builds relationships, okay? And then have some intentional quiet space. It could be a whole day, a Sabbath day, a rest. It could be family dinners. Now, how many
Hmm.
times
Hmm.
have you sat down with your family for dinner lately? That's kind of a disappearing habit that I think
It,
is just really
so
valuable.
true. Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. Or just time away from devices that you can
Right.
talk
Right.
or enjoy a game together, something like that.
Which sometimes you need the camping trip. You need
Yeah.
the away from the city where there's constant signals, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's something that gives you that peace, that rest, if you will. And we don't sometimes we overthink rest as I'm asleep, but even when we are um, disconnected electronically, that can actually be a spiritual rest. It can help us to recharge. And sometimes that means that we recenter our lives and we think about, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't need to be connected 24/7, right? And and certainly, again, I have tried to share with my students the importance of turning their devices off at night so that it's not dinging, chirping, buzzing, vibrating, right? They need their sleep and they need that sleep to be as good quality as possible. And so to actually turn it off or put it in a different room so that they can't be aware of when the light from the screen suddenly comes on, even when everything else is silent, right?
Right.
It's important. It's very important. So let me add one more to your list, and that is that we need to allow ourselves to test the fruit, if you will. Ask before you commit. What will this bear in my life? So
Mm,
as we're beginning to use technology as an extension of us, and we're using it with purpose, hopefully good purpose, then understanding what works before we start to download an app or before we launch into an AI search, um, all of these things, even choosing a video, right, that we're going to watch, all of these things can be done more purposefully and more wisely if we keep those parameters that you've described so well in mind, and we then leverage those parameters on purpose. And this decision process is vital for peace of mind and soul. And because of that, it also needs to be taught purposefully, especially for youth.
Right. That's where they're starting to build those habits.
Right.
So technology is going to continue evolving.
Sure.
We can't stop it right now. And maybe we don't want to. It's been such a big part of our lives, but
And it does make our lives easier in a lot of ways.
it does.
Complicated
Yeah.
in some, but easier. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Is to make our lives easier.
Right. But our stewardship role that we talked about, every intention from, the plow to the printing press to AI, ask the same question. Will you use this to lift and build or distract and consume? Will you use it to build or destroy? You
Right.
can use a plow to do either one. You can do AI to do either one. And, I had a conversation with someone I know that was just hesitant to use AI because they have a very tender feelings about spirituality and is afraid to have some sort of influence that would be uncomfortable to them. And so I had to just reassure that, you know what, the AI is going to reflect what you put into it. There's no fear. There shouldn't be any fear in what AI will give you. I'm sure there's AI engines that will, but the main ones, all the ones that I've looked at, from Claude to ChatGPT to Gemini to Copilot to Perplexity, Grok, all of them have a really decent set of values that mirrors your values, and they aren't going to inflict other opinions or ideas on you that you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so our challenge this week is to find a way to use this servant for good, this AI
Right.
engine, this technology. You find a way to use it for good. Maybe it's family history. Maybe it's reaching out to someone that needs encouragement. That technology, you can do that. If somebody lives across country or around the world, maybe it's setting aside a few minutes every day for a little sacred time away from a device. And like you said in the beginning, AI is not God. But when we treat it as a tool in the hands of a faithful steward, it can serve us as well. It can serve others.
Right. Absolutely.
And that, I think, is a real big power for this kind of technology.
Right. Right.
In addition, so here's some audience reflection things, just questions that you can reflect on. When was the last time technology genuinely helped you serve or connect with someone?
And I love that final parameter, to serve or connect.
Serve or connect, right? What weeds might you be cultivating in your digital garden?
Precisely.
Yeah. And which of the 3 discernment questions that we talked about, love, values, truth, which challenge you the most with technology? Maybe you evaluate your tech and decide. So this week, that's one intentional way that you can use technology as a servant instead of being its master.
Instead of letting it be our master.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. We want to be the master.
We want to be the master.
Of our technology, not the other way around.
Right.
Which again, it can happen. It'll sneak up on you. It'll take over if you're not being mindful and careful and aware of how it's being used.
And I think all of us have had that kind of moment where we're weak or we're tired or we're sad or frustrated about something, and it's a distraction. And at first it's good, but it sure can launch into doom scrolling that chews up
Right.
with time in our mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And even times there, it's like, wow, I've been scrolling through YouTube or Facebook for an hour. Where did that hour go?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens to me too often. And I need to be more careful for sure. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight on Centered Live, where we keep conversations grounded and practical. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who could use a reminder that technology is a tool, not. Thank you, everyone. We're so grateful for you and hope that you find some value in what we are discussing. So join us next week